Yeah.
I think we're ready. We've got everybody let in online, and thank you so much for showing up for our first Thursday program here at the Cowlitz County Historical Museum on Thursday, the 2nd of February, which is Groundhog Day and 6 more weeks of winter and the day before my birthday. So if anybody wants to come by here tomorrow and give me well wishes or cake, come on by. My name is Joseph Gavednik. I'm the director of the Cowlitz County Historical Museum, and I welcome you to this wonderful program that we have lined up for you. I have a few announcements first. One of them is that we will have a museum closure for a couple of weeks from February 21st until March 3rd, while we have the installation of new shelving in our storage room 10, which is going to almost double the space of that room. The contractors set the date and they will start work the day after President's Day. So we will be closed so that they have full access to stage materials and get their work done. We will post that online as well, of course. And as a result, that may impact our March 1st Thursday. Something that we're considering is maybe having it geared towards maybe a tour of the new collections, because we won't necessarily have everything on the shelves that quickly. So you'll be able to actually see the shelving before we stock that. So we'll keep you posted on that. We have our membership renewals came out, and some of you may have already received them or will receive them soon. So please go ahead and fill those out and return them. Our education programs are going gangbusters. It is like we're at the pre-pandemic level, and Danielle, our educator, is out in schools most days during the week now. I don't see her too much because she's out in the classrooms, spreading the word of Cowlitz County history into our local children's minds and ears. And so that's good, as well as our next exhibit coming up, 1923, the year that changed Cowlitz County, is going to be up by the 1st of March. So be looking for that. We will also be hosting the Columbia Artist Association Spring Art Show for a second year this year. That's going to be March 25th to April 14th. We will have a reception that's free to the public on Saturday the 25th. And this event, of course, we're live, we're on Zoom, and we're actually our first broadcast on KLTV. So we're on TV now too. But we're here to see to listen to the workings, the history, the operations of the Cowlitz County Jail. And with us today is the Cowlitz County Corrections Director, Marin Fox. She's been with the Corrections Department for 23 years. She was hired back in 1999 and has promoted through the ranks, serving as a sergeant, a juvenile detention manager, and corrections programs manager, before being promoted to director in 2008. She's raised locally in Rose Valley and has a Bachelor of Arts from the Evergreen State College. And my favorite part about her description is, when Marin is not in jail, she enjoys working out, dining out, and spending time with her daughter, Lucy. Not many people can get away saying that. You know, when I'm not in jail, here I'm out playing basketball and I'm out riding my bike. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Marin from Cowlitz County Corrections. Thank you. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I don't love doing this stuff, but here I am, and it was kind of an interesting process. I didn't do much research into the history of the Cowlitz County Jail until I was asked to do this program. So it was educational for me as well. And I'm a procrastinator, so that's been done in the last 2 weeks. So I always bring jail food because everybody wants to know about jail food. So let's just get this out of the way. This was tonight's dinner. If anyone is interested in partaking, I did bring some spoons. We ran out of peas, so it doesn't have any of the peas on it. This is what was served tonight in the jail.
You can give a description because we really can't see.
It looks like a spice cake, part of a hoagie, a casserole of some sort, and then a salad, and there was peas, but we ran out of peas. This was lunch, a ham salad sandwich, and these are, of course, up for grabs. And orange and some cookies. And a little We give them little juice packs that are fortified with like calcium and all that. So when you hear complaints about jail food, it's not great, but it's not as bad as you might think.
Not neutral.
We don't do Nutriloaf anymore. It is, well, not illegal, but there have been case law that stops us from using Nutriloaf. You can't use food as punishment. That used to be something, so if people got in trouble, was this really gross looking meatloaf that nobody liked. So let's see if I can get this technology right. There we go, but that's not the beginning. Well, I might not have got it right.
It's looking good on the other computer.
I think I've got it now. Oh, why is it starting in the wrong spot? No, you just don't look. There we go. That's the beginning. So, as he said in my introduction, I started at the jail in 1999. It has changed dramatically since 1999. It's changed dramatically since maybe 10 years ago even. It's an ever-changing business. And that's our current jail, obviously. This was the site of the first county jail. That's in Kalama, formerly the Kazano Hotel, which I didn't even know. It is at the location of the Kalama Community Building, which is where I had my wedding reception back in the day. Leslie Slape, I'm going to give full credit to her. She did a lot of this research. I found a lot of this through research she's put online. So giving her all the credit, I wouldn't have been able to figure some of this out without some of the things she put together. So the jail was originally thought to be located in a shed outside of this building. It wasn't inside, it was outside, but it was moved after there was a mob attempt to lynch Robert Day, who was the first person executed in Cowlitz County. He was picked up for murdering somebody, and there was a lynch mob that came after him. So at that point, they had to come up with a different plan for the jail. So this is a schematic from the Kalama courthouse. You can see the jail's right there. Little tiny spot. Day was accused of murdering Thomas Clinton Beebe on October 9th, 1891. And I'd like to point out the wheels of justice were turning much more quickly back then than they are now. So he went to trial in December of 1891. So the murder was in October. He went to trial in December. He was found guilty. During that trial or the appeal process, he attempted suicide, but was saved. And then after the appeal process, he was hanged outside the Kalama courthouse in June of 1892. So October to June, and he was hanged for it. They moved after the attempted lynching. They moved him into that little jail spot right there. It was a wooden room, and they put some bars in it to keep him in. But I will tell you that we have people in jail right now that have been in jail for I don't know, 700 days, and they haven't even gone to prison. And so the wheels of justice do not move like that anymore. There was also some data that said there were bills the Cowlitz County Commissioners approved boarding prisoners for 148 days. So it was $148. So that price has gone up a little bit. So the first Cowlitz County Jail, the one with the bars, I'm assuming that was the one that was outside the Kalama community of the Kalama building. I couldn't confirm that for sure, but this other one on the other side was purchased in during that process of when Day was in jail with them, and it was installed in that Kalama building after that. And you can see this explanation that was from Leslie Slape's research about the solitary confinement, that they initially thought it would help them reform because it gave them time to reflect on their wrongs. However, doctors in the 19th century noted it was negatively impacting psychosis. And interestingly, there is current legislation to limit our use of segregation and solitary confinement because of the negative impacts it has on people's mental health. So they had it right then, but we're We still haven't figured out how to do it better, unfortunately.
Where is that structure?
That's currently sitting at the outside the expo center.
Okay.
And I don't know where it was before then. I don't know if Joseph knows.
My only guess is that, the Expo Center cabin was brought to the Expo Center, I believe, in the fifties. So that may have been pulled out of the old building in Klamath at that time.
Okay. Our jail doesn't look like either one of those, but we'll get to that. So then we moved into the Kelso Courthouse, which is now known as the Cowlitz County Administration Building. It was on the 4th floor. I've never actually been up there, so I don't even know what that looks like, but I understand there are still cells and bars up there. It was a little hard to find information on this period of time. In 1930, the county population was 32,000. I think we're around 101,000 now, which surprised me. I thought it would have been lower. And the jail had an average of 21 inmates a day. Yes, Ted.
Wayne Nelson, my friend, told me he'd go up there with his dad was sheriff.
Yeah.
And there were people jailed.
Yep.
When he was a younger guy.
Go up and yeah.
That was good.
These are some pictures I found from that time period. What's interesting is we have somebody in jail with that last name right now, so I don't know if they're related. Probably. I don't know why they decided to face the toilet during their relaxing times. I'm not sure. Washington jails in 1940 held about a little over 1,000 inmates. By 1970, that had more than doubled, and by 2015, the number is close to 10,000. And there's a difference between jail and prison. So when people are arrested, they come to jail, misdemeanors to felonies. So we get everybody from a driving problem to murder. Once they are adjudicated or pled guilty on a felony, if they're sentenced to a year and a day, they go to prison. If they're sentenced to less than that, they stay with us, and all misdemeanors, they stay with us. This was sent to me by former Sheriff Mark Nelson. You can see it's an article from 1929. They were at capacity with 64 prisoners, which if you think about the population, 64 prisoners is really quite high for what the population was at that time. But it says, I think that maybe was during Prohibition, so a lot of them were alcohol-related offenses. This is another picture from that time period. That actually looks like a Longview police officer uniform. I don't think that's a corrections officer. I think that's Longview police sergeant, it would appear. I asked somebody who worked, who's been with the department longer than me, if he knew who it was. And he said it looked like Jeffrey Dahmer, but I don't think that's who it is. In 1926, 7.5% of corrections staff were female. By 1958, that was had come up to about 8.5. Today, females comprise about 31% of the workforce. In our department, we're at about 28%. It's still primarily men that work in this. For a long time, up until the late 70s and early 80s, female officers were called matrons, and they had different roles in the departments. And it wasn't until fairly recently that they were considered officers or deputies, depending on the department. This looks like a dormitory of some sort. It's pretty clean. I have a lot of issues with this cell. I've got a lot to say about the safety of this one. The holes in the walls, the hiding places under the bunk. This is not how we do it anymore. So then we moved into the Hall of Justice in 1976. This is about the most glamorous photo I've ever seen of the Hall of Justice. If you've ever been there, it doesn't really look like this, but as I put on there, the 3rd floor was originally built to hold 67 inmates. And this overhang area you see on this, where you drive under, was an addition. So 67 inmates was without that. That addition happened, I believe, in the 80s. In 1991, they did create a separate corrections department. We were the first county in the state to create a separate corrections department. They were typically under the sheriff's office. Since then, more counties have moved to do that. Most recently, Clark County did that this year. These are my predecessors. They're in the library at the Hall of Justice Jail. Dan Price is in the glasses. Well, let's start with Bill. Bill Weiss is the one in the white shirt. He was the corrections director from 1991 to 2006. Dan Price was from 2006 till 2008 when I took over. So this year I've been in the position as long as Bill. I don't know if the handlebar mustache is like the next step to complete my role. But I respect both of them very much, and I learned a lot from both of them. This is a picture of the booking area at the old jail. It's a Longview officer in blue, and those are two corrections officers next to them. The capacity in that facility eventually grew to 189 and then 240. We were exceeding those numbers by 1998, and that was getting worse with time. We had to have booking restrictions in place in order to be able to facilitate bookings in the community without going over capacity. And at that time, even with the expanded population, we had people sleeping on the floor typically, which is not a best practice for any lengthy period of time. This is Sergeant Wanda Pekka. She was wonderful. She's passed away. She was my sergeant when I started at the jail. I have nothing but great things to say about her. One of her quotes in this article, she says, "If you let it get to you, it will." And that's the truth. Not very many people make it to retirement in this profession. She's one of the few that has. I can count on one hand how many people that have made it fully to retirement. It's a tough job, and not very many people can stick with it through the end. But she was pretty cool. She would just pat down the males, even if there were no males around. She would just take care of stuff. She rules schmules. She just did whatever she wanted. People really respected her, and inmates did too. This is our old control room, and you can see the panel is opening all the doors and those old monitors. And it's, much lower technology than what we have now, but I swear it worked better in some ways. It was the higher the technology, the more problems you have sometimes. So in some ways it'd be nice to go back to that. So then we move into the current jail, which opened, the new jail opened in July of 2006. It operated, the jail at the Hall of Justice operated until 2013. So we were operating two facilities between 2006 and 2013. With budget cuts, the continuing budget cuts, we finally shut down the third floor and have been operating just this facility since early 2013. So let's talk about what is the jail like now. So our current average daily population is 219. Our facility capacity is 356. And I hear a lot of feedback about why we can't put more and more people in the jail. There are 77 cells in that jail, 6 single cells. So a lot of the cells have 6, they're for 6 people, 4 or 6 people. And if you have a person who is mentally ill or violent and they can't be housed with other people, and you have them in a cell that's supposed to hold 4 or 6, that takes away those other beds to be available for other people. So while our capacity is technically 356, there is really no way we could actually operate with that many people in our facility. Another thing to consider is that 85 to 90% of people in jail are not guilty of anything. They're pending. They have been arrested, but they've not been found guilty. And so they have a lot of rights, as they should. And we have everybody from, shoplifters to people that are in jail for murder, and you have to classify and house people accordingly. It's very typical for us to be using 30 to 40 of those 77 cells as single cells, because the people we'll have 30 to 40 people at a time that can't be housed with anyone else due to behavior medical issues, mental health, detox, any of those things. This is a photo of our booking area currently. It's an older photo actually because it has a metal detector rather than a body scanner. So that's where law enforcement bring us people. We go through a booking process with them. We fingerprint them on a machine now. There's no ink prints as of many, many years ago. And in pre-COVID, we were doing close to maybe between 7,000 and 8,000 bookings a year. That dropped all the way to in the 4,000s. And I think we'll be probably be between 5,000 and 6,000 this year. We're coming back up. This is a picture of one of our housing areas. It's a dormitory. It holds 48 male inmates. We house typically our better behaved inmates in that area. They have to be the good ones. That's also where we house people that work in our kitchen. We use inmate workers in our kitchen to help prepare this food. That may not entice you to eat it now, but they are supervised. This is a picture from today. Those are inmate workers getting patted down after kitchen duty. Sometimes they try to smuggle things in their pants out of the kitchen, like tortillas, cookies. So we have to pat them down to assure that they aren't stealing food items. You'd be surprised. So this is a little snapshot of today in jail. The background is from one of our cells, graffitied all up. So today we had 217 inmates in jail. We had to take 40 of those inmates had Superior Court appearances, 15 had District Court appearances. So Superior Court's felonies, District Court's misdemeanors. We have 18 officers working day shift. Our staffing during Monday through Friday comes up quite a bit to accommodate court, transport, all the activities that happen during business hours. We had one inmate on trial for vehicular homicide today. That's a trial that is still going on and will be going on tomorrow as well. Hopefully it'll wrap up tomorrow. We had 21 bookings and 23 releases in the last 48 hours. That's actually a little bit low. And we currently have 10 inmates that are in jail for murder, attempted murder, or homicide, which is higher than it has been in the past, but the courts are moving more slowly, so people aren't being convicted and moving to prison as quickly as they used to. And we served quite a few meals. I looked at insert reports from this week, and just to give you an idea of kind of the things we deal with. We had a former inmate was dropped off in our lobby after hours, barefoot and nowhere to go. She didn't, it was nighttime and it was cold and she didn't want to leave. We gave her a mattress and some blankets and she slept in the lobby till morning when she could figure out someone to come help her. We currently have an inmate who's heavily, she's 7 months pregnant, detoxing really, really heavily from opiates and fentanyl. And she's been refusing treatment for detox. Part of treatment for detox is getting your vitals checked, taking certain medications, and she's not wanting to cooperate with that. We had inmates passing notes, males and females. It's like middle school. They're trying to find love. It never ends. We had an inmate at booking. He was found to have a necklace with a pendant that was holding 5 fentanyl pills in it. And when we found it, he said, "Uh-oh." That was in the report. Uh-oh. We had another inmate state that he believes there's another inmate in his housing area is from China, and he feels like he's trying to give him COVID through the garbage. So, I mean, these are people's, that's what they're telling officers, and we're like, oh, okay, maybe they can't be housed with other people right now. Probably not going to put anyone with him for a while. But we did refer him to be reviewed by our mental health counselor and see if there's maybe something else going on. He's new to us. A lot of inmates, probably about 75% of them, we know. They've been through our doors before. It's not very often we get people we don't know. He's one we don't know, so we don't know his history, diagnosis, or anything like that. And it takes a while to put those pieces together. Let's see. Drug use. That background picture is of drugs we found on an inmate, both maybe. 75% at least are under the influence of something when they come in. And yeah, at least. Fentanyl is really, really heavily in this community right now. it's most opiate users are using fentanyl but at least fentanyl. And detox is not a deterrent. I wish it was. I've heard from community members that say just let them detox hard, then they'll stop using. That is not the case. Addiction is a powerful disease, and I've seen people, they're booked 10, 15 times a year. They detox every single time, and it is not the thing that's going to stop them. And so our goal and our role is to keep them safe. When they come in our doors, they need to leave our doors. So we want to have them detox in a way that's going to make sure they leave our doors. And that's we look at it from medical and a risk management standpoint. We had an inmate over the summer that literally came very close to dying from fentanyl overdose. He was sent to the hospital. He had emergency surgery, and within 6 days, he was back in custody and using drugs and very high and still healing from wounds from his emergency surgery. So if that doesn't tell you that, if anything if someone should have been stopped by a bad outcome, that should have been a wake-up call, but unfortunately it just isn't. I did a presentation once my sister was at, and she told me it was too depressing. So I'm gonna try to lie. It can be a little depressing. Jail can be a little depressing. So this is our body scanner. We were having a lot of issues with people coming into jail or trying to bring significant quantities of drugs into jail. We were the first county in the state to purchase one of these. We purchased it in 2017. Most jails have since purchased them as well. So all new bookings are scanned. It gives us the ability to see if they're carrying. You can't see everything, but you can see especially if they're bringing large amounts of things. And so there are some pictures from the body scan. So you can clearly see on that body scanner, there's something there that should not be there. That was heroin that he had somewhere hidden. So I'm thankful for that. I think it has made our facility much safer. This is one of our general population housing areas. They're split into quadrants. The jail does not have very many housing areas. It was built for the most bang for its buck. So because of classification, and we have to keep sex offenders housed separately, medium and maximum inmates sometimes separately. So each area is separated into 4 different areas. And so they all only have 3 hours of out time a day. They're in their cells for 21 hours a day in our facility, which is a long time. And that'll circle back to these cells are 6-man cells. So 6 is a lot of people to have cramped in a room for 21 hours a day. So 6 doesn't always work out. But it's the way it was built. We have to live with what we have.
Marin, what are the dimensions of those cells?
I don't know. I mean, they're big enough to house 6, but it's 2 and 2, 2 on the back and 2 on each side. 1 toilet, no privacy. And, we have maximum security inmates that are in there for really serious things. It's not very often we can get 6 in a cell without having a lot of problems. They'll just say, they'll hit the intercom button in their cell and say, get this one out of here before we beat them up. And we're not going to call their bluff. We're going to move that person.
Now, that's a pretty broad question, depends on the money.
Yeah.
But, I mean, is there, because of what's happened in the jail, though similar to this one, is there a move to, somehow house them differently, not build a facility that they don't expect 6 in them?
The architect group we used for this facility has been used to build many facilities in the state since. So there actually are a lot of jails built like this. It's built like a Trivial Pursuit, with pieces into little sections, right? And so you get a lot of bang for your buck on that. I think all jails are struggling in the way we are with mental health. And so we're all wishing we had more single cells. So I think we went from an old linear model to this model, and the answer is probably somewhere in between, where this works great, but we needed more single cells. And I think we will see construction change again in our industry as a result of the needs of the population. It was good on paper. These are restraint chairs. We try to use them infrequently, but they're necessary sometimes. And cart. So there's another, we have a wrap so we can, like make them like a burrito and put them in the cart to, to move them if they need to be restrained. Sometimes the wrap works better than the chair. But the chair is only used until they're no longer a threat to themselves or others. So it's used fairly infrequently and under strict guidelines. So I've been talking about mental health quite a bit. 60% of our inmates currently, or on average, have a mental health diagnosis and are on medication. We cannot force medicate inmates for the most part. We have one inmate right now we're force medicating. That's the second one I've had in my career. It's very, very rare. And there are a lot of hoops to jump through in order to be able to force medicate. And so Western State Hospital, I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. So if someone comes to jail and they have mental health issues and they're not going to be able to help with their defense because they don't understand court processes or they're significantly mentally ill. They will have an evaluation and a doctor will determine if they're competent to stand trial. If they're not competent to stand trial, they're supposed to go to Western State Hospital to be restored to competency. The current wait is 120 days. So if an inmate comes in and is very mentally ill and they should go there, they're going to sit with us for 120 days at least before they can go there and have it taken care of. And that is part of what is adding to our housing problems. And it's just not humane. It's sad. It's not humane. It's not how people should be treated. This is our mental health and medical unit. This is where we house our highest needs inmates. It is typically full. We have an officer in there 24 hours a day. It's the only area we house an officer in all the time. That allows us to have males and females in there. It's our highest needs inmates are in there. I blur out the faces because you're not allowed to have booking photos, or the photos of inmates are not releasable in the state of Washington, which is why you don't see booking photos on the news. So this is an inmate cell that's currently in custody. Why they choose to sleep on the floor instead of on the bed, I don't know. It's actually relatively tidy, all things considered. This is another inmate we have right now. So, I mean, it's just, and both of these people are awaiting Western State Hospital. So it's just, and sometimes they won't come out of their cells we've had people that won't come out of their cells for months at a time. They stand there, you can open the door and they just won't come out. Or if they're dangerous, they have to be restrained to come out and they don't want to be put in restraint. So they'll just stay in their cell 24 hours a day, months and months on end. Yeah.
Plug outlet in this picture, the last one, what kind of electrical devices are they permitted?
It's blow dryers, just kidding. No, CPAP machine.
Oh.
Yeah, that's maybe trying to think if we use them for anything else. Typically a medical device. This unit's the only unit that has those outlets. They're not in general population, or else they'd be arcing them and using them to make fire.
You get a lot of snoring.
Sometimes we've had people that snore so much we can't house anyone with them ever. Just sad. Isn't that sad? So, I mean, the issues in our industry, jails have become mental institutions. That is just what it is. We can kick and scream, or we can adjust, and we've had to adjust. We have officers that we designate to work with our mental health people because they're better at it. It's not for everybody. Not everybody has the right skill set for that, but we have officers that do it pretty well. We have bolstered up our medical and mental health. That comes at a great expense to the county. But again, we don't really have a choice at this point. We have to take care of people. The court system has slowed. COVID slowed everything very much. It is going back to normal now, so that's hopeful. We are seeing things move. Staffing and hiring, just like every industry, but corrections even more so. We used to get 300 applicants, and now we might get 20 in 2 months, you know? So, and we have to polygraph and psych, we have, you know, a lengthy onboarding process. So it's pretty challenging to find staff to fill positions right now. And risk management, you know, it's keeping people safe that don't want to keep themselves safe. And that's a challenging and high bar. And I'm a fast talker, but I also take questions. That was all I have.
If somebody's good at mental health or looking for somebody like that, is there any compensation for that as opposed to not doing the mental health?
Not at this point, but I would be open to it. I mean, we all have unions, you know, so
Right.
union contracts, it's not part of our union contract, but we've never been approached, but it's a specialty assignment. Typically you're going to get a better schedule. There's that's part of it. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, in your opinion, what's the pros and cons to having a corrections department versus being a sheriff?
Well, I don't know anything different. I've been part of a corrections department for my entire career. What I hear from my counterparts that work in sheriff's offices is the jail becomes the lowest priority. So the attention and the money go to the road, go to law enforcement, and the jail is kind of backburnered, and they don't get the resources they need. It has also become a much more specialized kind of work over the years. It's typically the county's highest liability, one of their most expensive departments. If a county is going to be sued, that oftentimes is going to come through the jail. So it requires, you know, specialized people that work in jails, and the road and the jail, and by the road, I mean law enforcement, are entirely different jobs. They overlap, but they're not the same at all. So
There's a question from online asking, what about visitors?
all of our visitation is via video. And that's how our facility was built. That's how most facilities are now. We have video stations in our lobby. So if someone wants to come and visit an inmate during their out time, they arrange that. That's free to do it in our lobby. If you want to do it from home, there is a cost associated with that. But it's no in person and not even through glass. It's like Skype.
I've heard you mention at our county staff meetings about challenges keeping your staff fully employed, fully staffed. What would be a typical shift for people that are new hires, or do they work a 12-hour day? Do they work 8 hours? And how do they get counseling? Do they get, as far as how to cope with working in a jail environment with so many people that have special needs, mental illness, and drug problems?
Sure. Most of our staff work 12-hour shifts. That's by their choice. That's what they've wanted to do. So if they're forced to work, they can work up to 18 hours, which is a very, very long time. We also have staff that work 8s, but most of our staff are on a 12-hour schedule. As far as counseling and all of that, that's becoming more and more of a focus. We're looking at doing an all-staff training focused on that this year. I think in corrections and law enforcement, there's beginning to be much more recognition about the PTSD of it. And I kind of liken it to the head trauma in football. You know, some people get hit really hard. It's a bad one, but it's oftentimes all those little hits. It's all the things we see day after day after day that are dark and, you know, and awful and hard to come home and talk about because nobody understands it. So I think I'm encouraged that there's more focus being put on that in our industry, but it is a focus that is pretty recent, but we're making it a priority as well.
I haven't said anything about juvenile detention, so it must not be your territory.
Juvenile detention was my responsibility for a few years. It is back under the Superior Court judges. So typically juvenile detention is under the Superior Court judges. That is the typical setup in counties. They had some turnover. That's why I had it for a while.
The youth services facility has the detention for that, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So we brought up the visitation.
Mhm.
I've read a number of incidents where inmates can call out from time to time.
Mhm.
And there's an extreme charge private companies that they
Yep.
whatever run the phone system, and it's extremely expensive for an inmate to call out. Is how does it work in our jail?
Well, it's a little complicated. It does cost money to call out. Your contract, we have a contract with the company that provides phone services. We also have tablets that they can, essentially text their family. All of those things come at a cost. The county makes a certain amount of money on revenue from that, from commission. I don't prioritize that revenue. We don't strive to have the highest commission rates or the most money we can get out of people, but there is just a built-in commission to it.
So what would a telephone call cost?
I'd have to look that up. I can send it to you. It depends on that kind of call. Like out of state's different. If they buy a phone time, I mean, it depends on who's paying for it. It's complicated. It is not as bad as it used to be, and it's being more and more regulated to make it less burdensome to friends and family, which I believe is the right thing.
I guess my concern, or what my question is that, for the most, everybody has a cell phone, but for the most part, you can call just about anywhere, any place for practically nothing.
Mhm.
So why do you have to contract with somebody to have a separate system instead of just a jail, county, call it whatever, phone that somebody picks it up, just like you in your office, pick up the phone and call somebody?
It's all monitored and recorded. And that's for safety purposes. That's for investigative purposes. The only phone calls that are not recorded are to their attorneys. So there's a whole system in place. That's what the companies provide. They provide the system and the infrastructure for that, and the platform, the computer platform.
Jail was first built in the courthouse in there. I understand the judges didn't want to use it. It's being used now.
It is. It's been in use maybe 5 years, something like that. When they added when they added a Superior Court judge, they started using that courtroom.
My question to the judges after they refused to do it is I asked them why they didn't say something in the first place. That's when you want to find out what the problem is. The children way.
Right. They had problems, and maybe it just took the turnover of some judges leaving the bench. But when they wanted to add a judge, they found a way to use that courtroom. So, however we got there, we're using it.
When the new jail was built on the splits on the Tulsa, they put 2 beds in each cell, and somebody found the state law that they could only have 1 bed, and so they didn't open it for a time until they took the beds out, and then the law was changed so they could go back to 2 beds.
In the Hall of Justice. Oh, huh. Well, yeah, that law doesn't exist anymore. I wish it did. Yes.
I think you mentioned that if they took people into the jail, you noticed about 75%
Mhm.
were under the influence of something. Do you know if that figure kind of holds statewide, or is Cowlitz County an outlier one way or the other?
Well, anecdotally, and talking to colleagues, I would say it's pretty similar everywhere. Yeah. I mean, I know we come up high on numbers for drug use and all those bad statistics, but in talking to other jails, we're not strange in any of the things we're dealing with. It's all pretty typical for a jail. Yep.
And do we rent beds out to other counties and stuff?
No. We hold for all the cities. There aren't any city jails in bigger communities. Sometimes a city has a jail. We're the only jail in the community. We also hold some for the state for what would be commonly known as parole violators. But other than for Washington State DOC, Department of Corrections, it's city inmates only.
There are a couple of questions online again. We have one that's 3 questions online. One says, what programs does the jail offer inmates?
Since COVID, we've not restarted any of our education programs. We've just restarted our volunteer programs. So we have church, Bible study, and NA. We don't currently have AA, but that's because they don't have any volunteers for AA. That's what we're providing currently. We're looking at adding back some of the programs we had before, which would be like anger management, domestic violence classes, and a few other kind of educational things. Part of the challenge is finding space to do that. We can't do anything Monday through Friday during the day because of court. So it has to be all after hours or on the weekends.
Second question from online. How do you manage schedule control shower bathing? Also, does the jail give an allowance for commissionary items?
What was the first part? The shower
How
thing?
how do you manage or schedule control shower and bathing?
Okay, true. So they are to do showering and bathing during their out time. So if they're in standard areas in our general population, they have 3 hours out during the day. During that 3 hours, they're expected to take care of their hygiene. That's when they would have visitation, talk to their attorney and all of that. If we have somebody who is not taking care of their hygiene needs, we try to talk to them about that and encourage it. It is not something you can force, but it will mean they'll eventually be housed alone if no one wants to live with them, which is fine for some of them. I think they do it on purpose. Allowance for commissary items. We provide indigent items. So if inmates have no money at all, we provide writing materials so they can write friends and family, basic hygiene items, soap, toothpaste, toothbrush, but no commissary items without their having money. Is there a library? We provide books. There's not like an actual library. We have books we exchange for them. We have a cart of books, and we take book donations. So if you know of anybody donating, they like books. They can have books mailed in if they're from the publisher. They can't just, family and friends can't mail things to inmates. They have to come from the company, the publisher.
What about shaving?
We provide electric razors for them. We had years ago provided straight razors, and we had an inmate assault that was pretty significant using a razor. So we switched to electric. We have the blue solution the barbers use, to clean things in between uses. Yeah. And clippers so they can clip their hair. Yes.
If somebody chose to do the 12-hour shifts,
Mhm.
how many days do they work? And then how much of a break or days off do they get?
They work 3 or 4 days a week, depending on the week. And then they have 3 or 4 off. So they are going to have half the year off with that schedule. Basically, you have half of your days off. The days you're working are pretty shot, but you do get half the days off. And the officers like it. They continue to vote to keep them. I don't know if I could do it. I didn't work 12-hour shifts. So it would be tough. Did you discuss the merits of the jail being under the sheriff? No. I talked about that question a little bit, but sure. Jails are increasingly being moved out of the sheriff's department into independent departments. They are, like I said, a specialized area of work, a very high area of liability, and a high area of resources for the county. So I think counties recognize the need to address that differently with appointed positions and focused resources. Yep.
Reasons for going to jail, and you mentioned shoplifting.
Mhm.
It seemed to me that some of those rules have been relaxed. I don't know if they have in Cowlitz County, but it has to be a pretty significant amount that they would have to steal before they got caught. So you're probably not seeing as many shoplifters as before.
We had booking restrictions in place for part of last year. Those have been dropped almost entirely as of December. So we take shoplifting. That's sometimes the decision of the store. Sometimes, not necessarily, I'll say Walmart, but sometimes Walmart doesn't pursue it. So, but if law enforcement goes and they pick somebody up, it's theft third is what shoplifting is. We accept that booking. We see it pretty frequently. They haven't changed the dollar amounts on theft in a very long time, so it's still a pretty low dollar amount for theft third.
Well, I think it was what, $400 or $500 in some cities now to protect the black and brown community.
I'm not sure what the number is for Cowlitz. Yeah. Yeah.
Are there, I would imagine physical dangers working in a jail and also for the residents inside the jail? How often is there an assault inmate to inmate or inmate to CO at the jail? Is it every week, if it once a month, or very infrequently, but would you say is the threat level of that? Yes.
One thing I didn't talk about is with the changes in the law in the state of Washington, there was a decision called the Blake decision, which decriminalized drug possession. So it is no longer criminal to possess drugs. That changed our population. We used to have a lot of people in jail for drug possession. Now the people that are left in jail are very serious crimes. So 40% of our population is medium and maximum. With that, we've had an increase in assaults, increase in fights. We had a pretty significant fight a week and a half ago where a person in jail got the bones in their face broken pretty well. So that's pretty frequent. Having inmate on inmate assault happens more frequently than it should. Assaults on officers also more frequently than it should. We have an inmate in custody right now that has attacked officers probably 10 or 15 times. It happens much more often than it did when I started in my career. A lot of that's tied to mental health, but it's not uncommon to have something happen. And, you know, assault, the level can vary, assault on officer, but, you know, to be spit on or to have something thrown on you, that's considered assault. To have someone hit you or, you know, try to bite you, that's considered assault. But I mean, those things do frequently happen, unfortunately.
Up until about a year and a half ago, Daily News would publish
Mhm.
that listed arrests and bookings. That was discontinued. Was that like just because the paper didn't want to do it, or was there a law that prohibited that?
No, it must have been a decision on their part. We send out an email every day that shows who was booked and what charges. So that was a decision of the newspaper. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if they published anything to explain why, but
Yeah, it just disappeared.
yep, they get the
I
info.
don't recall them saying it, cutting everything else off the papers.
Right. Yes.
You said you have a library there. Do you look at those books before you put them in the library?
Yes, we do. Not all the books go in the library. Yes. We use the State Department of Corrections has a list of what publications are allowed. We follow that list. So if it's not allowed in the prisons, we don't allow it in the facility. So, you know, if it's graphic violence, graphic sexual content, those things will not be distributed to inmate population. All right. Yes.
Final question. How
Yes.
do you balance, I don't know if I'm the final question.
You can
How do
be.
you balance an environment like working in the jail and your own mental well-being or CO's well-being? I'm sure staff talk with each other about issues that are going on, and sort of an informal counseling, I would imagine happens because you all are going through the experiences together. But how do you find that balance? Do you go to listen to new age music or go for a walk or
Not new
or
age.
do kickboxing or something like that? How do you maintain clarity in your mind
Yeah.
and a balance between your work life and your personal life?
Well, I think everybody probably has a different answer to that. Anyone that's been in this business a long time has a different answer than that. If you can leave it at work, you're better off, but that's hard to do sometimes. Some of it does come home with you. You know, I can answer for myself that working out is really important to me. My family is really important to me. And I think I'm built for this. You know, it's not for everybody. And some people can't, or some people just can't leave it and can't bounce back from it. It just depends on the personality. It happens to be a good fit for me. I thought I wanted to be a cop and I started at a jail and here I am. So I find it fascinating. I don't dread coming to work. I think people are interesting. And these are like the most interesting people you could encounter every day. And you know, having a regular desk job at this point, I can't even imagine it. But I think it helps if you can see them as humans and treat them as humans. And that is always our goal. And yeah, to find the humor in things. Not everybody finds funny. My dad would tell you, not all my work stories are super appreciated at the dinner table, but at work, they're totally fine. So I think it helps to have to keep it in perspective and try to leave work at work and enjoy your family when you walk out those doors. Yeah. All right,
Thank you so much.
of course. We do have some weapons up here for anyone that wanted to see them.